Okay, but like first, peep the makeup look. Come on. This is good. Hey, it's Cecil, and it's Tuesday because time got away from me, and also because I spent a lot of time doing this, which means it's gonna take me longer to edit it and put it up. Whoops. But I was a little sad today, and I needed to feel happy, and nothing makes me feel happier and more confident than something like this. We are finally back with another lore talk. It has been so long since we've done one of these. I have been planning some. I've taken a lot of notes for different ones, but I just have gotten overwhelmed by how much stuff there is. And I'm interested in all of it. So, hard to pick and choose favorites. But today we are talking about the rise and fall of the ancient civilization of Remuria. That is a civilization that predates modern Fontaine. It was in the Fontaine area, the Petrichor region, that we get to explore, as well as the Sea of Bygone Eras, is the ruins of the Remurian civilization. This was not a civilization that was under the Hydro Archon, but rather under a god king named Remus, hence the name. Sort of a play on Remus and Romulus, where in real life, the story goes that two brothers, Remus and Romulus, wanted to build a city, and they battled for who was gonna get to name it, and Romulus killed Remus and then named it Rome. Real bad shorthand, but basically that's what happened. There's no Romulus in this, it's just Remus, and he gets to name his country whatever the hell he wants. Good for you, bestie. I did so much reading and so much thinking, like too much thinking. But I'm glad that I did as much as I did because there were some things that I misunderstood until I went back and reread it and was starting to like piece together timelines both for this one and for the God Kings of Sumeru, which is something I've been working on forever and I just haven't gotten to doing it. This is gonna be a long one, probably. It actually might not be. I don't know. I yap. um so buckle up, get some tea. We are going to talk about the ancient civilization of Remuria, the rise and fall of Remuria. Let us begin. First, let's introduce Remus, the god king of Remuria. He was originally from Sumeru, but his land was conquered by King Deshret, and my estimate puts it between 2,500 years ago and 2,000 years ago. Probably. He left Sumeru and arrived in ancient Fontaine. He had been a singer of the oases, like a bard of sorts, kind of. He didn't want to submit to Deshret, so when he left for Fontaine, he was looking to perish in the high sea. Before arriving to the high sea, however, he stumbled upon the ruins of an ancient civilization that no one seemed to know anything about. And my guesstimate for the time span is because King Deshret died thousands of years ago, and no civilization was built in Fontaine until Gurabad had risen and fallen. Gurabad fell shortly after the death of Deshret, and I don't think it was that many thousands of years ago because Rukkhadevata hadn't fully, regained her strength after the whole forbidden knowledge incident with Deshret by the time that it was the Cataclysm. So he probably left Sumeru a little over 2,000 years ago and then found the ruins, and then within a few years or century, I don't know how time passes for gods, but soon after, established Remuria. Yeah. A bygone era and its survivors. So, in the ruins, Remus meets Sibylla and the Golden Bees. Sibylla is described as a former envoy tasked with guarding the Irminsul tree there. So basically, Sibylla was a Seelie, and she is the guardian of the ley lines for the ruin. Sibylla, much like all of the others of the angelic race, lost her form and most of her minds during the, or after the post 6,000-ish years ago cataclysm. unlike the blue lights we usually see. When her form and wisdom had sort of deteriorated, she presented as a golden bee, hence the golden bees. Deep in the sea, Scylla was also there. Deep in the sea, Scylla was. Yeah, I don't know. Scylla? I'm not sure. Deep in the sea, Scylla was also there as a survivor of the previous era. He is a bishop, a dragon, more powerful than other bishops, but not by enough to be a sovereign. He was charged with guarding Egeria's prison in the primordial sea. We'll get to that. Fate, prophecies, and the Grand Symphony. Sibylla said that Remus was destined to arrive in the ruins, that he would become a great ruler of a new, thriving nation that strived for justice, and that desire for justice would also bring about its downfall. Quote, "The greatest empire will face the most utter destruction, and this is Fortuna." Fate. Knowing in advance that his kingdom was destined to be drowned and destroyed, Remus tried to find ways to thwart the fate. As a former singer of the Oasis, he believed in the power of music. So he crafted a harmonious symphony of prosperity, Phobos, and was certain that as long as it was playing, the destruction would not come. Phobos was created by a combination of Remus's power and Sibylla's wisdom. And I do believe that Sibylla gave her life to become a part of it. Remus asked Sibylla if there was any way to avoid the terrible fate that she saw, and she pointed him to Egeria, the Hydro Archon, who was not the Hydro Archon technically yet, who was imprisoned in the Primordial Sea at the time as per her original punishment for turning Oceanids into a pseudo-human race using the power of the Primordial Sea without the permission of the Heavenly Principles. This is where Remus meets Scylla, who, as a guardian of Egeria's prison, fights him on sight. They battled for about 30 days a night until they got tired, and then Scylla was like, "By the way, why are you here?" And Remus was like, "I would like to talk to Egeria because I found out I'm going to lead a great civilization and then it's going to end. And I have to find a way to beat fate." And Scylla was like, "That is hilariously futile. Go wild. Go talk to her. That's funny." Shout out to Scylla, who's really just in it for the laughs. Egeria told Remus that because of her original sin, the people of Fontaine would always be doomed to this fate. She gave him a goblet of primordial seawater, and he promised he would use it to create a better world. When he left the primordial sea, Scylla decided to tag along because he was curious to see how this was going to pan out. Last-ditched attempts to save the world. With little fruit from the conversation with Egeria, Remus did many things to address the threats to the growing nation he had established. He tried to eliminate any perceived threats to the kingdom. So, Lochfolk, bishops, barbarian tribes in the parts of Fontaine that had not yet become part of Remuria. He mixed primordial water with an immortal stone to create golden ichor, which could contain the minds and souls of his people, and then that was put into a stone golem, which would be able to withstand a great flood, and basically made his people immortal. He also tried to replace the whole of the primordial sea with his golden ichor, which is a bit like throwing Kool-Aid into the Atlantic, but sure, why not? And he had 4 trusted human advisors, Harmas, to whom he granted a great deal of power above the other humans. And now, I try to say the names. Boethius, Cassiodor, Aurelius, and Euergetes. I have in my head a way to pronounce it, but will my mouth cooperate? And Euergetia. Yeah, we're Euergetia. I have a hard time transitioning between those sounds, apparently. More on Phobos, the symphony. The Grand Symphony was like a sentient musical piece made up of the combined wills of all of Remuria's people. It was meant to connect all humans through music and keep peaceful prosperity during the land. And for a little while, it worked. This is called the golden age of prosperity. it, if I had to like speculate on how it worked, I would say it's probably like kind of like wide scale hypnosis, and because the people of Remuria like consented to be part of it, it that helps with it just being like a steady thing. As long as the music is playing, it's keeping them in this like state where it's supposed to make them feel peaceful and positive only and have nothing bad happen, all good vibes. It's giving the giver, which not the first time I've said that about this game. But anyway, me whenever anything makes a commentary on how negative emotions are also important. You mean the giver? I know. It's probably not even the first media that did it. It's a cool. Anyways. Once people were put into their immortal golem bodies, however, they began to feel like they were the superior humans, and all of the other humans and beings in the area sucked and were weak and fragile and mortal, so they wanted dominance over them. Rather than just being like, okay, let's do a little conquering. No, they wanted to forget the annexing, they wanted to take the land and subjugate the people. When Remus saw that Phobos was beginning to deteriorate, he told Scylla that he'd installed a self-destruct of sorts, a final requiem, and this would return his people to their flesh and blood forms once more. What he didn't know was that Phobos had figured out the plan, and to preserve itself and humanity's will, he ate Boethus. How did a symphony eat a guy? No, really. How did a symphony eat a guy? How did a symphony eat a guy? How did a symphony eat a guy? Now, why did the symphony fail? In my analysis and opinion, first of all, there was just a flaw in using Sibylla's wisdom. At this point, she had no sense of self left. It had been thousands of years since the cataclysm with the second who came. She had already fully deteriorated from an angel to a golden bee. Her lack of individual will and the inability to distinguish good wishes from bad ones leads to messy situations. Humans are messy. You can't just be linking all of our thoughts into something that programs fate. Because every once in a while, we have an offhand thought like, man, I'd like to punch that guy, but it's not that serious, you don't really mean it, and you brush it off. The symphony does not know how to brush it off. It absorbs any time anyone has ever had that thought of, man, I'd like to punch that guy, until it's reverberating into everyone's collective mind that they should definitely go punch that guy. And, you can't outrun your fate, but like it wasn't a good plan. Hive minding, not a good idea. The final requiem. Remus also had an additional order for Scylla to try. His plan was essentially to try and crumble Remuria, but like in a way that wasn't the prophecy, so that his people would still be okay. So he had Scylla secretly lead a rebellion of bishops and barbarians against Remuria, and at some point in all of this, Remus slept. We don't know how long. It's kind of offhandedly mentioned, and it's hard to verify when these things took place, how long Remuria even existed. It was long enough to start feeling superior to other humans because Remurians were immortal, but the corruption happened pretty fast once the superiority festered, so I can't imagine that Remus slept more than maybe 100 years. But the timeline is a worm. We don't know. The agony of the barbarian tribes amidst the war was strong enough to wake Remus up. and he knew it was time, so he gave Scylla the order to sound the final requiem. Boethus didn't know about these plans, only thought that Scylla was a traitor and that Remus had abandoned them. So he stole the golden ichor and used it to seal Scylla away underneath a tall tower. But the self-destruct order was already in action. Scylla had been charged with dealing with the outcome of the self-destruct, but Phobos, as Boethus, sealed him away in a tower, so he couldn't control the outcome of it at all. The self-destruct was a very powerful, divine thing that was basically exploded. You know what I mean? It caused a huge tsunami. So everybody who was present in the Capitolium, including Remus and Scylla, were swept away by the waves, and the Capitolium drowned in the sea of bygone eras. The primordial seawater corroded the golden ichor, and the prophecy was fulfilled. Remuria had a golden era, fell into chaos, and was drowned in the sea. Egeria was then released from her prison, and she took her seat as the Hydro Archon, restoring order to Fontaine once more. And not that it really matters, but presumably when this happened, Neuvillette was born. The only thing, that was sort of the thing, I think I briefly mentioned it. A new Hydro Sovereign couldn't be born while Egeria was within the Primordial Sea. And I'm not entirely sure how it works. I think it has something to do with her being the heart of Celestia's Teyvat. Because, sorry, this is such a tangent, but I'm going on it anyways. So when Celestia had fought and won the battle against the Dragon Sovereigns, or at least had defeated the original Hydro Sovereign, what they did was they took the power of the Primordial Sea and they used it to create a new heart, Egeria. And so they intended her, like, she didn't have to fight in the Archon War. She was always intended to be, you know, she was always supposed to be the Hydro Archon. Which now makes 3 nations that the Archon War never really happened in, because it obviously didn't happen in Natlan because their Archons are human. It didn't happen in Sumeru for reasons that we'll cover in a later video. And it didn't happen in Fontaine because first there was Remus doing his thing, and then there was Egeria doing her thing. And once Egeria was out of her prison, Neuvillette was born. Happy birthday! Woo! See, now if he reverse engineered it like I did, he would know that he's about 2,000 years old. Anyways, relation to modern day Fontaine, because obviously it's a pretty direct correlation, you know? Egeria had told Remus that every civilization in Fontaine was destined to the same end, being drowned and dissolved into the primordial sea. So, the connection, very clear. We watched the prophecy play out in the Fontaine Archon quest, but unlike Egeria, and unlike Remus, Focalor was actually successful in saving her people. Yay! Because the people of Fontaine were born of sin, of Oceanids being turned into sort of human, without permission from Celestia, using the power of the primordial sea, they were sentenced to eventually be returned to their original forms. That's what happens. It's not just like, poof, you've been dissolved. Their consciousness still exists. It just becomes part of an Oceanid again. Even with the bodies of stone and golden ichor, the primordial sea still corroded the ichor within the Remurians who sank. As for whether or not any of them returned to Oceanid forms, who knows? Now, N and Focalor on fate and prophecy. Just as prophecies are usually only the future as seen from the perspectives of the gods, could things be happening in hidden corners where the gods' gaze does not fall? That was Nicole reign of the Hexen Circle. Unlike Remus, Focalor did not try to change the fate of Fontaine. Rather, she kind of worked to make the fate play out by the letter, but in a different way than the heavenly principles intended. Focalor inherited Egeria's sin, which I find silly personally. Egeria died in the Cataclysm 500 years ago, but apparently, because it wasn't specifically to atone for this sin, it didn't count as penance. Okay. In Focalor's eyes, though, the real sin that she chose to pay penance for was the sin of stealing the power of the Dragon Sovereigns. When she returns the power of Hydro in full to Neuvillette, she didn't just kill herself. She destroyed the Hydro throne, meaning that no Hydro Archon can ever arise again. So, what is fate really? Fate and truth are ruled by the heavenly principles and the ley lines. Information in Irminsul is seen as truth by those of Tevat, and the order of worlds and fates of civilizations are written in Celestia's false sky. Those from beyond Tevat, along with certain exceptions, for example the Hexen Circle, can see truths even beyond what Irminsul says. Celestia has blind spots in which fate can be manipulated, and a dragon sovereign in full power can subvert the fate laid out by Celestia entirely. But oceans did rise. The Empire, in a way, did fall because the destruction of the throne of the Hydro Archon. So even in changing fate, it's true, the only constant was change. Alright. No. Oh man. Come on. There we go. So this is related, okay? We're talking about fate. We're talking about Celestia's rule. We're talking about the moon. All right? Does a new moon signify an end of Celestia's reign? Does the wheel of fate being spun anew mean the world will break free of this cycle? What is fate? And what does the Fatui Adventurers Guild, Knights of Favonius, Hexen Circle, and Treasure Hoarders have to do with it? How are those five and the other six connected to one another and then also to fate? What is happening in Nordcry? I would like to know. Inquiring minds are wondering. Anyways, so the relation to the overall story of Tevat and Genshin Impact. Remuria is one tale of many, where a civilization on Tevat met its fated end under Celestia's rule. Utilizing Tevat's power of creation, which Celestia views as theirs, and humans pushing beyond what has been laid out for them, seeking immortality, forbidden knowledge, etc., are recurrent sins at this point. Looking directly at the sinners of Conria, especially you, Reina Daughter. 6,000 plus years ago, all of human civilization was wiped out. This was in part due to the second who came, forbidden knowledge, and humanity no longer listening to the divine envoys, angels, and trying to change their fates. And at this point, there are spoilers for the finale of the little guy Saurian quest in Natlan, so I will make sure to put a little chapter thingy-do in the video so that you can skip the spoilers. Sorry, I did it and I'm thinking about it so hard. After the war with the dragons, Celestia cast down the divine nails in Natlan, which fundamentally changed the ley lines and the phlogiston. Dragons were no longer able to evolve and advance. Instead, they began to devolve. Except even human evolution appears to be cyclical rather than just a straight progression, and whenever they become too advanced, a catastrophe befalls their civilization and wipes them out. Is it because evolution changes eternity? Will the new moon be under Celestia's rule? Will it rise in a false sky or the real one? Is erecting a new moon and a new fate part of Project Stuja? Also, dragons used to look up at the secrets of the real sky. They were not corrupted by the abyss until after Celestia came and after Nibelung brought forbidden knowledge. Was it forbidden before Celestia came? Did Celestia's rules make it forbidden knowledge? Would it have never corrupted the beings of Tevat otherwise? Is their desire for control the thing that always destroys civilizations in cycles? And some life lessons, because media and interpretation. Let's go. Rapid fire. If you try to go against a governing body's will, you can't do that shit where they can see you. You will not get very far. You'll walk right into what they're doing anyways. So, yeah. When when they say the revolution will not be televised, guess what? It's not gonna be televised. And it probably should not be posted on social media either. Don't have those conversations in your group chats, baby. Nothing is as encrypted as you think it is. And every social media company will turn over everything to the cops. Trying to homogenize a nation or kingdom or whatever into one culture, one mind, one value set has never worked. Humans are messy and very diverse. This has been attempted through heavy censorship, through propaganda, just lots of things to try and kind of take a really big ass country with a lot of different cultural groups within it and then try to make them all feel united as one culture. And it doesn't matter who's doing it. I don't think it works. I think that was a big, I think that was a big issue with the USSR. personally, I mean, there were other issues, but I think that the fact that they were because they were so focused on creating what it means to be a communist nation when they were like the first communist nation by that name. They were so focused on creating this like singular culture to represent what they were to the world. But if you've ever seen Russia, it's big as fuck, dude. There's so many ethnic groups within Russia, and you can't consolidate all of that neatly into a single cultural value, into a single, you know? You can try and encourage people towards atheism all you want. Religion is a part of culture in many ways. You can do all these things. You can try and do it and be firm with it so that hopefully everything stays together and there's no room for propaganda from your enemies to get in and weaken things, but it just, it very rarely plays out the way that you're hoping it will. Phobos was meant to represent one collective will of humanity, but we do not have one collective will. You can't make everybody happy. Something I've been reading a lot with different organizational structures is instead of just pure democracy or be unanimous or nothing happens, I've been reading up more on consensus style voting, where if there are people who maybe don't like it, it's basically, it's compromise. It's finding a way where everybody gets something that even if they don't like, even if they don't like fully agree with it, they might be like, this is acceptable. It won't kill me to sign on to this, you know? I think Phobos was democratic to a fault, in the too many people had the thought of, we gotta punch that guy. And then what did they do? You are not better than other people, by the way, just because of where you were born or where you live. And when you believe that, you believe you're better than other humans. You leave room for very genocidal bullshit. And I see it all of the time. As somebody who lives pretty close to the city and in the north, the way y'all talk about Southerners, the way y'all talk about people in rural areas, it is not it. It is. Because y'all freaks will be celebrating a hurricane. Whew. But we don't have time to unpack all of that. Final notes, rapid fire words. I'm gonna say some questions. You, in the comments, are gonna give some answers. Can you believe Snezhnaya is later this year? That is bonkers to me. Do you think we should overthrow Celestia? Like, do you think Celestia is acting in the best interest of Tevat? Or do you think that everything that's wrong maybe was kind of their fault with the way that they took over? How we feeling? We've seen the effects that forbidden knowledge can have on beings from Tevat. Is Celestia right to ban it? Why is it so corruptive? Should Fontaine's sin have been paid when Egeria died during the Cataclysm? Was there really any harm in allowing Oceanid humans to exist? And is the inflexibility, is this the level of inflexibility of the Heavenly Principles rules? And like Nervalet, kind of a spring chicken. If he's like really only like 2,000 years old, like he's kind of a baby. Like we know so many people older than him at this point. Because I mean, first of all, Venti and Zhongli older than him. We've got pretty sure that Raiden A is older than him. Let's see. Well, obviously we've met the Dendro Sovereign, older than him. Some of the characters in Natlan who are dragons, older than, like, as far as immortals go, he's kind of a baby. Like, he's older than Nahida, But now that Nahida is considered to basically also be Lord Rukkhadevata, he doesn't even really get to claim that anymore because she would be like 6,000 years old instead of her baby 500. So, like, Novelet kind of a baby immortal. Just saying. What I love about Remuria is just, I mean, all of it, really. First of all, that area was so cool to explore, but also, I love me some information about an ancient civilization. I love exploring Enkanomiya. I love exploring the chasm. I'm enjoying the new region with the volcano. That's freaking awesome. I love getting more information about older civilizations, stuff from, yeah, just all that stuff. I think it's really cool. I also think that it's important because as we go into Snezhnaya, we're kind of being set up for that conversation. Because on the one hand, it's like, no, of course we're never going to side with the Fatui because there are enemies, because they kill people, obviously. But it's like, are we going to side against the Fatui? I mean, we are pals with multiple either current or former Fatui at this point, right? We've got Child, we've got Arlecchino, we were friendly with Capitano. Um we've got Skara as the Wanderer. So it's not like Linny and Lynette and Feremine, they're all Fatus. So when we go into Snezhnaya, are we like, it's the traveler kind of having that moment of like, because it's not like we're buddy buddy with the heavenly principles. That's the bitch that ripped us away from our sibling. She's part of the heavenly principles. We're almost certain. Like, I mean, she literally said that she was like the enforcer of the heavenly principles. I feel like that's pretty direct. I don't think there's much room for interpretation. She's probably one of the four shades of the primordial one, right? I would love to learn more about the shades. We've kind of interacted with Isaroth, the shade of time, kind of, just like tangentially through A's second story quest. And obviously there's a lot of artifacts from her in Mondstadt, which I find really interesting. Like the further we go and the more we like get bits and pieces about the shades, I'm like, wow, is it kind of weird that Mondstadt, like, not weird bad, but just weird interesting that they kept worshiping her? I don't know. It intrigues me. I would be curious to interact with her a lot more directly. Um, we've met Renova, the Shade of Death, as a conglomerate of eyes in the sky, which I loved and was great. Like, that was cool. Um, but yeah, but there's still two more shades. We don't know for sure what their aspects are. Um, we don't even totally know like how they function as epithets of Phanes, right? Very interested to learn more about that though. Um, and to know what the prime like does the primordial one, like, as a separate slash connected entity, does he have his own, like, does he have his own aspect that's like, because some people have theorized that it might have to do with the different artifact categories, which I think is really cool. Sorry, this is like a lore talk on top of the lore talk. But it's connected because we're talking about what is fate, and we're talking about the birth of dragon sovereigns. And we've learned a little bit about the nature of the creation of a pyro sovereign. I won't get into that because I've already put spoilers in this and I shouldn't put more. But like there's information. Is there enough information for me? No. I hope that we get a lot more answers soon. The next Genshin update is actually coming on my birthday. Like, if I did my math right, then Tuesday, May 6th, that evening is when the Genshin update is gonna be going on. And I just think it would be like so cool and so nice for me specifically if we do indeed get the Merjavari in this update. And by the Merjavari, I mean whatever the fuck is actually there. Because how do you lose a region? We got symphonies eating people. We got regions just disappearing and being replaced with something else. Oh my gosh, an Enjo? Speaking of ancient civilizations, Enjo? That fuck? Imagine if he'd just been honest with us from the beginning, and then we could have just been like frenemies, and it would have been fine, and then we could know what the hell he's researching, but instead he's slime, so we have to threaten to kill him. And now we don't get to know what he's researching. Every day. Every day. So not the point. We're not gonna do a lore talk on top of the lore talk. I'm gonna shut up. I'm not gonna autism too close to the sun, I promise. But I do think it's interesting that Gilla looks like the all-devouring narwhal. On the one hand, maybe it's not even related at all. And they just like reused an asset because it happened recently and that was just easier than trying to like make a bishop that looked cool enough. But like, it intrigues me. It intrigues me how much abyssal stuff, not the abyssal filth, but like the glittery part of it, you know? It is interesting how much that looks like also the primordial sea and stuff. That's really interesting to me. I don't know. Many thoughts, many questions, and who knows when or if we will get any of them, but hopefully soon. Oh, it is so good to be back to doing these. Hey, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below if there is anything in Genshin that you would like a lore talk for in the future, because I have my list of like stuff I'd like to do, but it's not set in stone. It can be changed, it can be adjusted for what the people want. You can follow me in the links in the description box below, including on Twitch, where I play Genshin, and in the Discord, where I am yapping about Genshin even more. While I'm playing quests, I am blowing up the Gaming Talk channel to state all of my thoughts, all of my feelings, and there's always room for an I'm a star from the sky joke. So, for more of that, join us. The girls that get it. It's kind of a stream joke, but it's fine. You'll learn. If you're in the Discord, you'll learn. Yeah, share this with someone else who is a little bit autistic about the Genshin lore and loves this stuff. And if you have not done so yet, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.